Welcome into the September 7th episode of the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. I am back from vacation, ladies and gentlemen. Dave, thanks for holding down the fort for me for last week, buddy. You did a terrific job. I knew you would, but, give yourself a little pat on the back for pulling through while I was out there soaking in all the sun and, the pina coladas. And I'll just stop before everybody gets jealous, I suppose. But I'm back, and Labor Day has now come and gone, which means the hockey season right around the corner, Dave. And the Rasmus Sandin saga continues, my friend. And I might just have a solution. I'll tell you all about it. And also, Dave, the Leafs have some interest potentially in an unsigned UFA. We'll touch on that as well. All that more on today's edition of Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Leafs podcast, one-stop shop for all things Leafs. I'm your host, Mike DiStefano from TSN 1050's Toronto Radio, also known as Al's brother on TSN's Overdrive and TSN 1050's Leafs Lunch. Joining me, it's my co-host, Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet, also writer for the NHLPA. Locked On Leafs is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so be sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts from. You can also now catch us up on video on YouTube. Just hit up Locked On Leafs on YouTube. And Dave, the season's right around the corner, man. Like, Labor Day has come and gone training camp really starts next week. They start reporting next week, and you've got the rookie camps going on next weekend. I'm excited, dude. Hockey's coming, and it came fast. The summer's, I guess so. It's not over, but it's winding down. It's basically over. It's now back to school time for those who have children, which means hockey's coming back in the next couple of weeks. Stoked.
Yeah, it'll make it a little easier for us to actually talk about stuff, and we're not just,
Exactly.
we're starting to getting like, it's funny because like all these other podcasts are saying, "All right, summer's over, we're coming back." And I'm just like,
we didn't leave.
We didn't leave. We didn't leave our fans hanging and drying to dry. Like our fan, how many guys are just like, "Yo, like I needed something during the summer." We gave you that 3 days a week.
Yeah. So hopefully you guys appreciated that and liked listening to us, and continue to come and listen to us if it's your first time finding us, whether it's via audio form, wherever you get your podcast, or you're watching us on YouTube. Appreciate it. Hopefully you like today's show and you come back, like I said, starting I think next week or maybe the week after. We'll be back to 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, a new show each and every day through until the end of free agency. So all the way through till next summer. It's going to be a long season, and it's basically here, buddy. I don't know, but I know we both tonight, though. We're recording this Tuesday night at about 11:40 p.m. And the reason why we're doing it so late, both of us, I know typically this is a hockey podcast, but I'm sure a lot of people who listen to this show probably also play fantasy football. Goes hand in hand with hardcore sports lovers. We both had drafts tonight. We both had 2 drafts to go tonight. How'd you feel about your team before we get into some hockey talk? You feel like you drafted all right?
It started off. I'm so confident when I start drafts. I got guys queued up. I know exactly what positions I want to attack.
Well, and let me guess. Whoever the hell is in front of you takes your person every time.
What it happened in one draft? It happened on 3 straight occasions. And that's why you have a queue and you rank certain guys in your queue. But it's like when you miss out on your top guy in the queue, and look, this is a lesson not just for fantasy football, but for fantasy hockey as well.
Hockey, same thing, yeah, right.
You have this, it's almost like you're like within 2 picks of you picking, and your guy is still there. And you're like, you know what? I think this guy will go this direction, or he needs a defenseman or a goaltender, so he's not going to take this forward. And then, boom, takes your guy pick before or 2 picks before. That's just like a kick to the gonads every time.
Oh, yeah. Have a backup plan. Definitely have a backup plan going into your draft. And, if you know you're 2 or 3 picks out, make sure that there's a pool of 3 or 4 guys that you're happy with, so that if that your first, second, and third option do get taken in those 3 selections, you still have another guy who you were targeting, and it makes the draft go a lot quicker. Because we had a couple of people in this draft that I was in today. The one with 2 minutes. Typically, I like to do a minute and maybe 90 seconds per pick, but 2 whole minutes, and we had a few people take the entire 2 minutes to make their selections. It's like, oh my god, guys, we have like 14 rounds to go. Can we speed this process along here? It is literally like the 9th round. Why are you still taking so long? Or it's like the second round. It's like there's really like good players here. Just take one. There's a whole bunch of them. But anyways, is what it is. But yeah, I'm excited. Fantasy football. We got training camp starting up next week. We'll have rookie camps starting up as well. They'll be in Traverse City taking on Detroit, St. Louis, and Columbus. So we will definitely dive deeper into that next week. But today, there's a couple of things that we want to get into. Obviously, I wasn't here at all last week, so I know I listened to you talk about the prospects. I listened to the Fan Friday, where a lot of questions were asked and answered. Some great questions from you guys, by the way. We'll definitely be doing a lot more of those in the future and as we get ready to go for the season. But something that I did want to talk about that I didn't get a chance to is just the fact that we're still sitting here just about a week or so away from training camp, and Rasmus Sandin, Dave, is still unsigned to this point. It's now, I guess, starting to become a little worrisome because we've been here as Maple Leaf fans. Not, Sandin isn't quite the cachet that Marner Nylander had, but still, it's a young prospect and a young player who this team clearly likes and believes can be part of this team. And if for some reason they've yet to be able to come to some sort of agreement, I'm going out like at this point. I would be shocked if he reports day one of camp, if they don't get a contract signed the next week.
Yeah, I think even Chris. I think I mentioned it last week, but Chris Johnson pretty sure said if Sandin does not have a contract, he's not showing up like to
Yeah,
camp. He'll be around in Toronto. He'll be ready to go. I mean, the ultimate move is not even traveling to Toronto, sticking in Sweden. If that's where I'm pretty sure that's probably where he is in the off season. Like that's the ultimate. Like, no, I want to get this contract dealt with before camp. If he's
yeah.
in Toronto, it gives the Leafs a little incentive to say, you know what, he wants to come to training camp, like he's willing to work a little bit. So I'm very curious to see, like, at what point does Kyle Dubas, it's going to be talked about if he's not at camp. It's going to be like the Nylander situation and the Marner situation, probably not to the same degree, but it's going to be asked almost all the time. It'll be especially day one when they all do their introductory press conferences. But yeah, it's you just don't want to have to deal with that headache again.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's just not something you want to deal with. But it's not just the Leafs that are dealing with that. And maybe some has there's some agents that are holding out for their clients to get better offers. I don't know. But yeah, it's getting to that point where it's like, when's the deadline here? When does one kind of just say, all right, no deal, we're not showing up to camp, or like waiting for that?
Yeah, I don't know if there's necessarily a I mean, the deadline, I guess, is what, November 30th or December 1st, whatever it is. That's the
Yeah.
true deadline because then they can't go and play afterwards if he's unsigned, which I don't expect that to happen at all, which is why Toronto has all the leverage. And something that I want to point out last week, and where I think Toronto maybe even gained a little bit more leverage, is you look at what Eric Brandstrom signed for, just a 1-year extension with the Ottawa Senators, signed for 900,000. And he's somebody who didn't have any arbitration rights, and he didn't have a leg to stand on. Really, he pretty much got whatever he was going to be offered, and it's either sit out, make nothing, or take what's being offered to you. So Brancham takes 900,000 in Ottawa, and I mean, I think Rasmus Sandin is a better player than Brandstrom, but like at this point in their careers, they're both first round picks. Brandstrom's played a little bit more actually. Brandstrom at least has over 100 games played, 116 games. He's got 31 points in that time, where Rasmus Sandin 28 points in 88 games. So he's yet to play 100 games. And last year, coming off of an injury, I don't like. I know I see why the Leafs they're capped at. They really can't offer him a whole lot more than the 900,000 that Brandstrom got. Or sorry, the 1.4 million that Liljegren got, which we all kind of assume is what the Leafs are waiting for him to sign. I think that's why it's gone radio silent. It's like there's a contract waiting for you. It's $1.4 million, and you can either sign it or you could leave it. Like that's it. When you're ready to sign, you'll be welcome back to Toronto. But 1.4 million, 2 years, that's what you're signing. I truly believe Kyle Dubas is playing hardball with Sandin, and if he wants to play this season to make any amount of money, I think that it's going to be a very similar contract to what Liljegren just got. And if he wants more than that, you say, well, Brandstrom, who's got more experience than you, only got 900,000 on a 1-year deal. I think you should be happy with 1.4 for the next couple of seasons there, considering you've only played 88 games in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know where Rasmus Sandin. I understand there's probably frustration, and that's probably playing a big factor in it all, but it doesn't get any better in my opinion the longer you wait, just because the Leafs aren't exactly like, oh, we need to get Rasmus Sandin signed because we need to get him. We need he doesn't have a spot. He has a critical spot in the lineup. It's not like that. He's
No.
behind 3 other defensemen. So so that's where Kyle Dubas is just like, all right, you want to sit. We would not want to waste a year of your development. We want to see you on the ice, but at the same time, we're not like going to be missing out on Rasmus Sandin in the lineup because we have guys that can play, right? It's not like I look at like the Jason Robertson situation in Dallas. Like Dallas is in a tougher spot because he plays a critical part of their team. They have to get that done. The Leafs are in no rush to get it done because and you brought it up, Eric Brandstrom, a guy who has been underwhelming considering he was a top rated prospect when he was in that trade. He's played a lot more than Sandin and hasn't really lived up to the potential, so that deal reflected it. And actually that's why waiting so long for Sandin kind of hurts because he might have gotten a better deal than that. But now that deal's there, the Leafs are just like, you think
That's
you're
the going
worth
rate. That's kind of the going rate. We're willing
Yeah.
to give you a little bit more, and we're willing to bring you up to Liljegren money. You just got to take it. That's an extra $500,000 that they're offering him. That's a decent chunk of change for a guy who has significantly less NHL experience than Brandstrom.
Exactly. That's where I think some players kind of get themselves caught a little bit there. They're like, "Oh, we can hold out for better deals, squeeze them out a little bit more." It doesn't work for a player that's been on the bubble to play. It works for a player who has the leverage, like a William Nylander, like a Mitch Marner. That works when you hold out. It doesn't work for the lower tier guys. And I think this is maybe a perception of reality for Sandin right now that he needs a little bit of maybe a reality check in a way.
Yeah, I completely agree there. But he's not the only RFA that's still yet to sign. I mean, you've got Jason Robertson, you've got Alex Formenton, Sean Dursey, Kirby Doc, Ryan McLeod, Nick Hag. Like, there's a bunch of guys, and there's one other one that I have not mentioned yet, which I think potentially maybe a 1-for-1 change of scenery type of trade could be in the works with Toronto and this mystery team and this mystery player that I will tell you about on the other side. But before we do, Dave, why don't you tell the good folks about Built Bar?
If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you're depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor, folks. Ready? Delicious, indulgent cookie dough. Covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to their new flavor, cookie dough chunk puffs that have a light, chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate, as I said. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, it's actually healthy for you. That's right. Cookie dough chunk puffs have only 160 calories and 15 grams of protein to go along with it. So make sure you run to built.com to snag a box for you. And if you would like to be a little bit nice, you can grab some for the family as well. That's all dependent on you, though. What's great about Built bars is that all their bars are made with collagen proteins, which your body absorbs more efficiently, and it provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good, and is also good for you. You're gonna love the new cookie dough chunk puff, whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, or you just need to grab a quick bite. Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar. Grab yourself a Built bar. And if you need a little more incentive, go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. So that is promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off at built.com.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. We're hosts here at Locked On Leafs, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast. So if you are a diehard Leafs fan, if you're part of Leafs Nation and you have not subscribed on YouTube or on audio platforms to this podcast, what are you doing? What are you doing? Because we are the only show that brings you daily YouTube and audio podcast for you. So make sure that you are subscribed for that daily Leafs content. Before we took a break, Dave, I was kind of teasing a potential change of scenery trade that it's been kind of percolating in my mind. Like if Rasmus Sandin really doesn't want to come here because he feels like he, doesn't feel appreciated, feels like he's been sent down the depth chart too much, and he wants to change his scenery, which maybe behind the scenes, we don't know because the Leafs keep things pretty tight-lipped. Maybe he has asked, for a trade. I don't know, pure speculation, obviously. But maybe there's another player out there who also could like a change of scenery. And maybe it's just like a swap of prospects, good, young, former first-round prospects. And the player that I'm thinking potentially is a former I'm sure you could guess what team it is, actually. What he used to play, what his junior club was based on this trade. Which junior club do you think this player played on, David?
Gee, is it the Kyle Dubas factory of the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds?
Oh, it certainly is, my friend. It certainly is. It's Barrett Hayton from the Arizona Coyotes. First round pick, former 5th overall pick back in, was he 2017? I want to say it was. I believe, 2017 draft, 2018
I was going to
draft.
say it was the year after Liljegren.
Yeah, so it was the Sandin draft, actually. This was the year that Sandin, they played with each other, if I'm not mistaken, in Peterborough. But Barrett Hayton, look, I know that he's kind of fallen out of favor in Arizona, but that organization is just a tire fire. But this is a guy who was a 5th overall pick not too long ago and was the captain of Team Canada at the World Junior Championships. He's a player who I think potentially with a change of scenery, maybe he can finally, realize that potential and become a top 6 player, top 6 centerman in the National Hockey League. And we've kind of talked a little bit about the possibility of moving Tavares to the wing maybe at some point. I'm not saying it's going to happen this year, but if you bring in a Barrett Hayton to kind of come in behind him and eventually when he is ready, like when Tavares has gotten to a point where maybe Hayton's ready to take that next step, maybe that's when you could potentially move over John Tavares. Because again, Hayton had top 6 aspirations. Is he going to realize those? Doesn't look like he's going to do that in Arizona, but maybe a change of scenery could potentially allow him to flourish. And the other, a big reason why I think this is possible again is because he comes from the Kyle Dubas factory in the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. And, back in the day, he was a big time player for the Sioux Greyhounds. He was their captain in 2018, 2019. So he probably knows his player extremely well and potentially would be interested in bringing him on board. And we all know how bleak their center depth is. So you can get a 22-year-old center, former 5th overall pick, who potentially just needs a change of scenery to flourish. Maybe that's something that the Leafs could take a look at. Not that they have enough blue liners for Sandin to be expendable, but potentially that's something that you see it all the time. Two players who've kind of run its course in that organization, they
Mhm.
make a swap, and sometimes it works out for both parties. Maybe that's a scenario that could work out for Toronto.
It just seems like anytime you get a forward with any scoring potential and they go to Arizona, it's
They
like
die.
it's like where goals go to die.
Yes.
Like, so I mean, they've made a lot of weird, crazy trades lately that it wouldn't strike me as like odd for them to do. And this is also a team that's under new management. And they're like, oh, why would you trade a 5th overall pick? Look at what Chicago did with Kirby Doc.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes when you just feel like it's not the right fit for the organization, or if the player just isn't what you're looking to do long term, cut bait, try to get what you can for them.
Yeah.
Um,
And Hayton too, he can play the left side as well, right? So even he doesn't have to play down the middle.
exactly.
If they don't have a spot for him, they could play him on the left wing. They could play him in the top six. We've talked about how there is an opening in the top six on the left wing spot. So Barrett Hayton could be a guy too, if given that opportunity to play with a William Nylander and a John Tavares. You give him those types of players, potentially he could tap that potential too, just by being on a line with a couple of studs.
And that's it too, right? The Leafs don't have a plethora of left shot players. This is also why some people have suggested, well, if they make any moves or if William Nylander is going to play, you can try him on the left side. The Leafs definitely need more left shot ability up front, especially in the middle six. That's why Alexander Kerfoot at times is the guy to play on the second line, because unless you got like a Nick Robertson, and this is also why Ilya Mikheyev was on that second line, the Leafs just don't have a lot of high profile, skilled left shot forwards, right? Especially on the wing. So yeah, if you can get somebody that's versatile, can play center and wing, I always like the versatility there. Um, and we know where Arizona is. They'll probably look for assets for Barrett Hayton and salary, right? They could still take on. I don't know what exactly their salary situation is, if they've reached their goal of maintaining the salary cap floor, which I guess they probably have done.
Well, I can let you know in about 2 seconds
They
if they are at the floor or not. They are technically just at the floor, I think.
they also have $20 million in cap space.
Yeah. So I
Uh,
mean, even Kerfoot, maybe a Kerfoot. Like Kerfoot could go the other way. They're going to need some NHL bodies, like have
yeah,
some, a prospect, but also so that Toronto can get rid of some salary themselves and try
because
and.
the Leafs do need to get rid of salary. They're over the cap.
Well, I also uh, see. It's only because I kind of like I liked Barrett Hayton in the draft process. Like I didn't like him as a 5th overall pick. I thought that he was a little high. Like went ahead of Philip Zadina, went ahead of Quinn Hughes. He was one of those late risers in the draft. But I liked him as like a 10 to 15 type of player, like a top 15, I guess, top half of the first round guy who had second line center. That's where I kind of pegged him as in the future. If he could, I guess, potentially play on the wing as well. But at 6'1", 210 pounds, he offers more to me maybe than Kerfoot. Now, Kerfoot's been a really good Swiss Army knife for Sheldon Keefe because he can play down the middle, he can play on the wing, he can play on your second unit power play. He's been able to kill penalties, so he has been a good player. So I don't necessarily like saying the phrase "I'd rather Barrett Hayton than Alex Kerfoot" because maybe I wouldn't, but I would rather Barrett Hayton at a cheap contract than Alex Kerfoot at $3.5 million, and then have a little bit more flexibility with your cap space. That I feel more comfortable saying.
Yeah, that's I think the important part there is that we're constantly putting Alex Kerfoot in a lot of these trades, but he's not a guy that you're trying to just get rid of. He always had the tough shoes to fill with the Kaji trade, and he was never going to fill those shoes. But he has been a useful player for the Leafs, and I think that
Very. Guy had 50 points last year. Quiet 50 points.
he is also the dream player for the Arizona Coyotes because he's not actually making $3.5 million this season, $750,000.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that is the Italian bargain of a century.
Exactly. So they definitely, that contract would be much more attractive to a team like Arizona than it would be to a team like Toronto. And I'm not saying a 1-for-1. I know we're going to get in the comments, oh, you think that they're going to give a first round pick for, a guy who's going to be out of there, in a couple of months. No, I don't. I don't think that would be a 1-for-1 trade. I'm just saying Kerfoot could be attached in any other possible deal if there's another prospect. Sandin makes some sort of package that makes it fit. I'm just saying that if Toronto wanted to also try and move out salary in a deal for a Barrett Hayton, potentially Kerfoot could be included in those contract negotiations. Yeah, so that's kind of was a player who I looked at and I'm like, still hasn't signed, still an RFA, so they're gonna have to sign him, but I wouldn't imagine it's gonna cost him a whole lot to come back. Like he sounds, similar probably to Brandstrom. He hasn't really established himself as an NHLer quite yet. Like he's split time in the AHL and NHL last season. He did play 60 games, which is a career high last year with Arizona, but just 24 points, 10 goals on the year. So, he still hasn't established himself as a full-time NHLer to get a big deal. So I would imagine he would come in similar to, the Brandstrom-ish type level contract, like $1 million deal. Let's see what you got. And then maybe you can cash in on a more multi-year deal down the road if you end up playing well this season. Go prove it, right? So that was just a name that I thought would be interesting if Toronto wanted to try and make a move here at some point. And if they decide Sandin he wants too much money, he's digging his heels in, okay, maybe we move on. Maybe we try and go get another guy who wants, maybe a change of scenery would help him flourish. And Barrett Hayton was kind of one of those guys who I saw still unsigned. Maybe just a little swap of unsigned RFAs potentially could benefit both squads. All right, Dave. I think we'll probably end it there. Actually, there was one quick report. A quick report that you heard or read in 32 Thoughts. Why don't we take a break? When we come back, we'll quickly touch on that report about Toronto potentially being interested in a UFA, and so we'll be right back. We'll tell you who that is next on the Locked On Leafs podcast. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. We're hosts here on the show. Dave, you were telling me earlier today that you read a little snippet that sounded like the Leafs could be interested in potentially bringing in a current UFA still out there on the market. Would you like to explain what you read today?
Yeah, first I saw it on Twitter, and then I don't just believe things I see on Twitter. I do a little research. So Elliot Friedman said that there's actually quite a bit of interest in Evan Rodrigues, who obviously he had a pretty decent season with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He had 19 goals, 43 points in 82 games, and he just came off $1 million. Pretty decent contract there for Pittsburgh. And so he's still a free agent. There are teams that have looked at him. The Calgary Flames were one of those teams. They just signed Nazem Kadri. I don't know how much cap space they could have at this point, considering all the deals that they have made. The Vancouvers were believed to be one of those other Canadian teams. I think there were 3 Canadian teams involved. Vancouver was one, but Friedman says that might not be the case, especially after they're a little tight with the cap. The Anaheim Ducks were another one, just because they have all the cap space that you could ask for. But then the Leafs, we know that Evan Rodrigues was with the Leafs before. He had a cup of coffee with the team when the
Wow. For
I'm trying,
like a couple of days. It was
yeah,
part of the Kapanen trade, right?
I believe it was the captain and trade. It was just
Yeah.
for to make the salary work.
It
Then the
was an
Leafs decided
RFA.
he
Well, it was
they
a
didn't
pending
qualify.
RFA. I don't even know actually why they put him in the deal, to be honest. It was a pending RFA, and they decided not to
I actually
tender
think
the
the Leafs
deal
wanted it.
until the Leafs
I
did want him. Yeah,
think it
they did
was
want.
they were trying to get him signed for below the qualifying offer,
Yeah,
because if Rodriguez decided to take the qualifying offer, or if the Leafs tendered the qualifying offer,
which was
it would
two
have actually,
million. It was 2 million at the time.
yeah, and the Leafs didn't want to pay that much, so they basically said, "We're not going to qualify you," and then that led to him going to free agency and then ending up back in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And yeah, and he was I think he was looking for a bounce back year after playing in Buffalo, which another market where dreams go to die in a lot of ways.
Well,
Uh,
that year he wasn't actually that great that year
yeah.
because he 35 games. This is in the 56 game COVID shortened season.
Mhm.
He ended up with 14 points in 35 games, and then this past season is where he erupted as a player. 19 goals, 43 points in 82 games. So some pretty decent numbers for Evan Rodrigues. Ended up with 3 goals, 5 points in 7 playoff games as well. So was able to factor in the playoffs. And so I Rodrigues is an interesting player. Somebody who, again, you mentioned the Leafs have had interest in the past. And if I recall, when he did get traded, Dubas mentioned before that they had talked to him. They tried to trade for him when he was with Buffalo. They had talked to him before. Maybe they were looking to draft him a while back. Like, there's a couple of opportunities where they tried to acquire Evan Rodrigues. I think actually he came, was he undrafted? He may have been was he an undrafted free agent and then signed with Buffalo out of college, I think.
I'm just looking this up right now.
Yeah, 'cause he played 4 years at Boston University, and then his last year tore it up, 61 points in 41 games, wow. So after those 4 years, he came out of college, and he ended up signing with Buffalo. So I think that he came out of college and signed with Buffalo back in 2015. So I think they wanted him back then, and then really liked him when he played for Rochester and Buffalo, tried to acquire him, and obviously got him in the Pittsburgh deal, and he's just decided not to stay and go back to Pittsburgh for whatever reason. So Toronto's always had interest in Evan Rodrigues, so it wouldn't shock me if the price is right. And that's the one thing where I'm kind of curious on. Earlier in the offseason, I would have said Rodrigues probably going in the range of $3 million based on the breakout season that he had. I'm not certain that he can garner that type of contract anymore, which means it becomes a little more interesting if you're the Maple Leafs, if you want to try and bring in a Rodrigues. Maybe you could get him at a much cheaper rate than you previously thought you could have. Maybe it's a tryout basis potentially, like a PTO type of situation, but it wouldn't be the first time that Kyle Dubas, wouldn't be the second time. I don't even think this would be the third time that he's tried to acquire Evan Rodrigues' services for the Maple Leafs organization.
Yeah, and there's quite a few players. If you look at kind of like the bargain market, that's what I'm calling it now. Like guys who
Mhm.
are looking just to latch onto a team. There are quite a few players.
You know who's at the top of my list on this market?
I think I have an idea.
Sonny Milano.
Yep, I was gonna say he's probably there. Zach Aston Reese, good defensive player. If you are looking to beef up your bottom six, especially on the
Yeah,
defensive side, penalty kill, he's another decent option there. Tyler Mott as well, another gritty bottom
love me
six.
some Tyler Mott. Oh, would I ever love the Leafs to get them at Tyler Mott. I forgot he was still out there. There's
He,
some good free agents that are still available, and we're a week away. How is Tyler Mott not gobbled up yet by a team? That is insane to me. Insane to me. He's such a good, like, he's a perfect fourth liner. Perfect fourth liner. Speed, energy, can score a little bit, like can add that little bit of tertiary scoring from your bottom six, can great penalty killer, block shots. I can't believe that guy's still out on the market. Sorry, I have a little crush on Tyler Mott, if you can't
I
tell.
think you're gonna see, yeah, one of these guys. If I'm and look, Tyler Mott's only 27. Some of these guys aren't at the end of their career, so take the 1 year, reload your value. Especially, hey, look, if you play with the Leafs, you're at least guaranteed to go at triple the value to the Edmonton Oilers after that. So I'm just
Exactly.
saying, there's no better way to inflate your value, even if you have a subpar season, than to play for the Leafs.
Yeah, yeah, potentially. Calvin DeHaan still out there and available potentially. I know that he's been linked to Toronto in the past. I don't know if they'd still be interested at him at 31 years old, but at one point, DeHaan was definitely a target of the Maple Leafs. Cody Eakin, another guy who's like a fourth line center who can kill penalties type of player. Zach Aston-Reese you already mentioned. There's some good players. Derek Brassard always still kicking around as some depth for an organization. Daniel Sprong, who had 14 goals last year, he's out there for the picking if someone wants to bring him on board. Alex Galchenyuk, again, out there looking for a new team. PK Subban. I'm curious if PK Subban, where he ends up. I'd be surprised if he doesn't get an opportunity somewhere. I mean, I don't think it's going to cost a whole lot to bring in a PK Subban. You bring him in one season, he can play on your third pair, play, a little bit of power play minutes. I think that, for a organization that probably would like to sell some jerseys, maybe that would be a spot. Like Arizona would make a lot of sense. Seattle would make a lot of sense. There's a few teams out there that I think would make some sense for PK Subban. I'm surprised that he's not snatched up yet, just sheerly based on the
Name.
ticket sales, the name. Like, it's, again, he's a player who probably will only get like $1 to $2 million. He's not going to command a whole lot of money. I'm surprised no one's taken a shot at him yet.
It just feels like we're in a holding pattern for some strange reason. I think some teams just are, maybe they're trying to sort out the RFA stuff. It feels like we're waiting for something to happen, and it's just going to come out of nowhere. It's going to come out of left field, and there's going to be a flurry. There's going to be a flurry of, I'm expecting, it's always how it goes. You're going to expect a flurry of moves to happen. And yeah, it's going to prove that we're back into we're back into the NHL season mode. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Dave, we'll leave it there. Good chat, good stuff. A lot of fun as always. Good to get back at it, man. Good to get back at it. I think that's the first like week off that I've had. What away in March, I guess.
Yeah, this is the second time you've abandoned me.
Okay, so second time that I've abandoned you. I apologize. At some point, you got to take a vacation, guy. You workaholic over here. But appreciate it. But we're back. We're back. The duo, the dynamic duo. And should we announce our guest for Friday? Probably should have done that earlier in the show, but I
No,
suppose we can
people
announce it.
guessing.
You want to keep people guessing?
Yeah, because
Okay, write down in the comments down below. All right, write down the comments if you can guess. See who can guess who our guest is going to be for Friday's show. He is a former Toronto Maple Leaf. That's the only clue that you're going to get. And if you know me, you probably should be able to guess that one. And you know what I'm all about. You should be able to guess who the player is. But that's the only clue that I'm going to give, and it's a very easy clue if you know anything about my life. All right, that's gonna do it for us here today, Dave. Appreciate it, pal. We'll get back at it again tomorrow. We will. But I'd like to thank everyone for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasting platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. Go ahead, leave a like, comment on the video down below, anything. Let us know. How do you feel about potentially bringing in a Barrett Hayton or bringing in an Evan Rodrigues, a Sonny Milano? Who out there in the free agent market do you think would suit the Maple Leafs as a potential PTO offer or PTO candidate maybe for Toronto? Let us know in the comments section down below or reach out to us on Twitter. All right, that'll do it for us here today. We'll be back with another episode tomorrow. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.